Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Kelly Ballard, and James Fight. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. It wasn't an iceberg this time. It was, however, another fatal flaw in the submarine that sank, imploded, settled on the ocean floor next to the RMS Titanic. 5 people lost their lives in this high-end tourist exploration. And of course, the wreck has sparked all kinds of debate. The Titan submersible is the talk of common sense folk and adventurers alike. On the one hand, who wants to go 2.5 miles under the ocean surface? On the other hand, no risk, no reward. Kelly, you dove right into the deep end on this one, on the latest sea disaster. Why don't you fill us in on what you know?
Well, I think the biggest thing to take from this is that the submersible, the inner tube, the blow-up boat, whatever you want to call it, had received a lot of negative feedback on it before it ever did this. They were warned several times that there were problems with the design and with the structure of this new submersible that they're using. I mean, they totally changed the shape so it reduced the pressure that it could sustain underwater. So to me, that's just asking for it. I mean, if I was getting ready to go on a plane to go somewhere like, New Orleans, and
She had to bring that up.
Yeah. And the plane, they said, oh, we decided to change it. We're making it a round plane now, so it's okay. Put some zip ties on there and here we go. I would want to look into that a little bit more because wait a minute, what about the aerodynamics? We're going to go dive bombing or what's going to happen? So I think that's a big issue. And I don't understand spending all that money to get into something that experts have been warning for a while is not safe.
Right. Okay. So Andrew, would you take your son after spending $250,000, 2.5 miles in a tin can?
Well, I would go on that round airplane. I'm thinking, wow, did the U.S. government or all these people have access to alien technology? I mean, hey, that's amazing. But when it comes to my son, I mean, he's the daredevil of the family. He wants all this crazy stuff. So I'm sure if he's older, he's going to want to do something crazy like that. But I think the main story in all of this is that we have to be reminded of that terrible, terrible, terrible Celine Dion song from Titanic, My Heart Will Go On. I think out of all of this, that's the main tragedy from this subject. But in all seriousness, though, for the economics, if you look at the economics of the topic, one thing I see consistently is that there should be more regulations. Why didn't the government intervene? Why didn't the government, put in, make sure the ship was great? But I think it's comparable to the banking crisis happened in March with Silicon Valley Bank. Was that it was just horrific management. If you look at some of the stories, the CEO, he didn't want 50-year-old white men. My apologies, Dave, but he didn't want 50-year-old white men to navigate the ship. Or they used a $30 Logitech joystick. If I go on a spaceship, the Blue Origin of Jeff Bezos, and I see they're using a PlayStation 2 controller, I'm gonna have second thoughts about going into the ship.
Wouldn't we just? If I would approach that little vessel, I would have gone, no, we're going to the bar. We're going to have a couple cocktails and watch Titanic. I'm not.
Hey, $250,000 buys a lot of booze.
You're going to have to if you watch Titanic. You need all that booze in the world.
So, okay, Dave, why didn't the Navy say, hey, we heard it blow up or we heard it implode? Why didn't they just come right out and say we're going to wait on debris and then it's done? Why draw it out 4 days with, they still have a few hours to breathe and give people all this hope? Why did they do that?
Well, I think to the comments before, you can understand why there's a resurgence in interest in Darwinism. But to your question, the Navy has very sophisticated equipment. And they do recognize when you have a breaking up of a ship versus an implosion, because they have data that supports both of those. So they're fairly confident about what they're hearing. On the other hand, You can understand the reluctance, while others, in fact, most were hoping that there would be a rescue, and so they're not going to come out and destroy those hopes until it's obvious that there isn't any. And the conspiracy theorists who believe that the Navy held off on this information for a slow news date to help the Bidens, I think that's a stretch. Despite the fact that I wouldn't put it past the Biden administration. I don't think many thinking people would, but I don't think I think the U.S. Navy has a higher ethical.
I think it's disappointing that they knew. I mean, they're not going, oh, what was that boom? Is it a Mr. and Mrs. Whale having a domestic dispute? They knew. So I don't know. I think maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I don't like the lies, I guess. But Jim, what about regulations? I mean, I know you're a libertarian at heart, and you don't think government should regulate anything.
No, I don't. I mean, here's the thing: the warning signs were there. Okay, if you want, maybe this is a bit of a hot take. If you want to drop $250,000 to get on a submersible with a known history of electrical issues that has at some point been held together by zip ties. I mean, we've mentioned the zip ties thing a couple of times now. It's or I guess mine's the second time.
Why didn't they have duct tape?
There was you're right. Where's the duct tape, the hay baling wire, and the zip ties? No, there was a passenger from a 2021 trip who saw the support arm, one of the support arms, break on the submersible, be zip tied back together, and then still willingly walked into the thing. Now, I get it. He got a heck of a ride, I guess, but here's the thing. Sometimes when you play Russian roulette, there's a round in the chamber. It's just that simple.
Actually, and also to piggyback on what James is saying, this is the unintended consequences of regulations. Because we're such an over-regulated society and economy and marketplace, people think, regulation is attached to everything. Therefore, I don't need to do my own research or my own due diligence for such a risky endeavor. Which ties to my previous point about Silicon Valley Bank. People putting all their life savings or this troubled bank and without a care in the world because the government's going to backstop them. So when it comes to this regulation, this is the unintended consequence of it, and which is why I can't stand regulations.
So here's a last question. Just shout out. Who the heck's going to pay for all this?
The American taxpayer is going to pay for it. Let's face it. The Coast Guard, the Navy, all of the assets that were used, I mean, they've been paid for by the American taxpayer. In the military, you chalk that up to training, and you're going to have to train somewhere. This is probably a very good opportunity to do things you might not otherwise do in terms of training. But in the end, it's the American taxpayer that's paying for the assets that were used, and they're sunk costs.
All right, guys, we're going to have to wait and see what's in store as more fallout will surely unfold and more details are released. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, panel, for a nice, lively discussion there towards the end. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Special thanks to our editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio. I'm Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today. Free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.